Lesson 11-6, Area of Parallelograms, Triangles, and Trapezoids. So just a quick review, a parallelogram is a four-sided object that has opposite sides parallel. A lot of times you will see an object like this as a parallelogram. It has four sides and the opposite sides are parallel, which means they go on and on forever without touching. A triangle is a three-sided object. So it has three sides. We typically hear of right triangle, obtuse triangle, and an acute triangle. And then you also have a trapezoid, and this is a four-sided object with two sides that are parallel. So you typically will see it something that looks like this, where the two sides here are parallel because they will never touch, but the two sides on the side will eventually touch as they get closer together at the top. So those sides would not be considered parallel. Also remember that when an equation or word problem is asking for area, they're talking about the space on the inside of the object. Perimeter is the distance around the outside. Area is the space on the inside. So the formula for area of a parallelogram is area equals base times height. So if you have your parallelogram, they will tend to give you the base, which is the bottom, and the height is how high the object is. Height is usually identified with an H, but you know the height of an object is always the line that is 90 degrees that is represented with a 90-degree symbol. So the height of the object and this distance are not the same thing. So if you are not given the height, then you have to measure the height if you're given a ruler. If not, then you are not able to find the area of a parallelogram without the base and the height. Pause the video to try a few examples. So for the first example, you want to do base times height. So you're going to take 6 times 3. So this would be 18. For the second example, you're going to still do the base times the height. Your base is going to be 6.3, and your height is actually shown over here using that right angle again to identify that that is a right angle, and instead of doing it on the inside of the shape, it did it on the outside. It's still equal. So you would multiply that by 9.8. So if you do 6.3 times 9.8, you get 61.74. The formula for finding area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So if we have a triangle, typically the height is identified with a right angle, and let's say this one was 6, with the base being 8, you would multiply 8 times 6, and then you're going to divide that by 2. So this would actually be 24. Pause the video to try a few examples. For the first example, you have 8 as your base, and the height is 3.4, and you're going to take all of that and divide it by 2. So if we do 8 times 3.4, we get 27.2, and we divide that by 2, and that gives us 13.6 for the area. For the second example, sometimes we have things called right triangles, and that means that one of the sides of the triangle meets another side to make a right angle. That right angle side is the height. So in this example, you do 6 times 4 divided by 2. So 6 times 4 is 24, divided by 2 is 12 for the area. To find the area of a trapezoid, it's a little bit of an area of a parallelogram combined with the area of a triangle. So the formula is 1/2 of height times base 1 plus base 2. So if you remember, a trapezoid looks kind of like this, with one of them being base 1 and one of them being base 2. It doesn't really matter which is which. And then you have the height over here. So you would take half of the height and multiply it by the sum of the bases. Pause the video to try a few examples. For the first example, we have 1/2 of the height. So 1/2 of the height, which is 8, times 6 plus 12. So 1/2 of the height would be 4, and you're going to multiply that by 18. So if you do 18 times 4, you get 72, would be the area of this parallelogram. And for the second example, you have 11, 4, and 6. There's not a height labeled, but because we know that these two sides meet at a 90 degree, we would assume that the 4 is our height. So 1/2 of 4 times 6 times 11. 6 times 11 is 66, and 1/2 of 4 is 2, and so 66 times 2 is going to be 132. Pause the video to complete the lesson review. Make sure you show me this lesson review for verification of watching this video.